Welcome to another segment of provocative conversations destined to provoke further thought and spark greater questions regarding God, church, and the religious establishments of both the past and the present. I am the proud heretic, Mr. Provocateur himself. I want to begin a new topic that is an ongoing continuation of other similar topics. It's along the lines of truth, of course, and all truth meets up, intersects with each other. Truth remains consistent in what it is throughout the plane of truth itself. Truth begins with itself. It meets up throughout the process with itself, and then it ends with itself as well. If truth ever ends, which technically it does not, especially if God is truth and God has no beginning or end. If you're going to follow the storyline of what scriptures say, whether or not you realize what scripture says. So, in relation to your success in your wealth, even though it's your success and even though it's your wealth, it's really not. So often we get things twisted once we get over into what we would consider the blessings of Deuteronomy 28. Over there you have the blessings and the cursings. When we get over into the blessings, we tend to get things twisted. We tend to get the big head in regards to how we became successful, how we got into position, how we became whatever it was we became. And then we begin to belittle people. We begin to look down our noses at other people. We begin to see people in the light of our success or in the light of their so-called failure or their so-called cursings. Because see, you're cursed. If you're only one of two things, if you're going to follow the Bible line, people are really twisted though. But anyway, you're going to either follow the fact of being blessed or you're going to follow the fact of being cursed. Deuteronomy 28 says, I set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. You choose. So any and everything that people do is either under or have possessed or is either under the blessing or the cursing. It can't be in between with those who follow the Bible storyline. It's either the blessing or the cursing. And then those, or I'll say, and then, or I'll say, of course, or there are exceptions to that because there are people who are mature in God and who have studied enough to realize that I don't like the saying, but bad things happen to good people. No, I say good things happen to good people. It all depends on what you consider good is. God considers it all good. He said it all works to the good. So there is really no good or bad in God. And that's where we get it mixed up. As human beings, we see it either good or bad, or either hot or cold, either on or off, or either black or white. It's never in between. It's never neither nor. But then the question was asked to Jesus, Lord, who did sin? Was it he? Was it his parents? Who was it? And Jesus said, neither. It was not because of any of that. It was so that the purposes and plans of God could take effect. So often we tend to, when we experience the Deuteronomy type blessings that it speaks of, you'll have houses that you've never built. You'll have lands that you never paid for. You will have fields that you never planted. You will harvest things that were never planted by your labor. You'll be blessed when you go in, blessed when you come out. You're always blessed. Your windows will be open, the windows of heaven. The blessings will be poured upon you. New Testament says, I'll pour out a blessing that you won't have room enough to receive, room enough to have. Malachi speaks of cursed if you don't pay your tithes and offerings. Yet at the same time, people can't explain why people seem to have some of the Deuteronomic type, Deuteronomic type cursings on their life, even though they did pay their tithes and offerings, and even though they did get in $100 and $500 line, and even though they did come and give with their big hats and white dresses on, still they had death in the family, still the coronavirus or whatever it's called still came upon one of theirs, and still their child came down with cancer, still their wife died, still their husband became ill, still their husband lost his job, still their car was repossessed, still their house was repossessed, went into foreclosure. All of these things happened despite the fact that they paid their tithes and they paid their offerings. Isn't that something? Amazing, but apparently true. So, oftentimes when people have so-called success and God causes your hands to prosper, you tend to somewhere along the line bump your head on something. You slip and fall on some banana peel or whatever. You bump your head and now your thoughts are twisted. Now you've deviated from the true fact of the matter. You've deviated from the fact of how you became what you became, and how you are so successful, and how things are working for you, and how you are prospering. And you get over into the twistedness of thinking that it was because of something you did, because you're so awesome, because you're so great, because your genetics are more potent, more powerful, more kingdom minded than anyone else's genetics, that your bloodline is so pure. We forget where our success and our wealth actually come from. And it's bad when you forget where your promotion comes from. Because if you forget where your promotion comes from, you'll begin to treat people like peasants. You'll begin to treat people under you like nothing. These can be men who have had families for 20 years and they have kids almost as old as you, if not older than you. Yet because of your high-mindedness and because you've bumped your head on your fall, somewhere Humpty Dumpty, you had a great fall. And now your mind is twisted as to how you became who you've become, how you've received all that you possess today. That's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. Now that you're in position, now that you do have that raise, now that you can afford that home, now that you do have that car, now that you do have that type wardrobe or whatever it is, now that you are a licensed minister, now that you are ordained, now that you are a pastor, now that you are a bishop, now that you are the choir director, now that you are the head musician, now that you are the chief apostle, now that you are all of these things, now you've switched, you've bumped your head. Now you've forgotten where your success and your wealth truly came from. Now you're over into the area of pride. Before you were very humble. Your humility was commendable. You were commended for your humility. But now your pride is at its stinkest. Your pride is stinking to high heaven. That's a subject I'm going to deal with very soon. I have some of my material to deal with that sitting right here by me now. I'm going to deal with pride more than likely soon, because the condition of our present day world is a place of very heavy pride. And because pride has its ugly head roaring throughout Washington and throughout the nation, throughout the world, in relation to where we are and what the climate is today, especially when our commander-in-chief is the greatest show of pride. But anyway, because you've twisted yourself in regards to your success and your wealth, your humility, your humbleness has left you and has become replaced or has been replaced with haughtiness and pride. Haughtiness and pride. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that in relation to your success. So the topic of this title is Don't Get It Twisted. Don't get it twisted in regards to your success and your wealth, your accomplishments. Part 1. Before we can even begin on the verses, and trust me, we will run through verses on this one. We will run through some good verses. I think there will be eye-opening verses. But first, I want to lay down the foundation of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words, because we'll be using these words. I'll be using these words, and I want these words to stick with you as far as their definition. Of course, you can always look them up for yourself. However, they're general words. They're words that people use all the time. Everyone doesn't define them correctly or at all. So I'm just going to put it out there, okay? To twist something, to twist is to dislocate or to distort. To distort. Twisting something, to distort it. People love to twist scripture. People love to twist a story around. A twisting of a story causes the story to become something totally different than what it actually is. To dislocate or distort. It's to cause to take on moral, mental, or emotional deformity. To twist something is to morally deform it. Deform, to cause it to deviate in its essence. To deform something is to take it out of the form or shape that it was initially in. A moral deformity, mental deformity, emotional deformity, to mentally change what actually is. That's why I say oftentimes people bump their heads and they become twisted in their thinking and their mental faculties. Now they deform that which is truly real. They somehow twist up what was actually the cause of their success, of their promotion, of what they possess. And they twist it into saying it was something that I did because I was sold this and I was sold that. They deviate from the proper direction, from the direction that they were going. The word success, it means favorable or desired outcome. Oftentimes you will hear the church world say, the Lord favored me. I've gone to people and given them a couple of $100 or whatever, and they'll say something to the effect, look at the Lord favoring me, and walk right through me. It's like, man, give me that money back and you go let the Lord do it then. You let the Lord do that. Give me my money back. I don't take that back. I'm for real. That's what I feel. You go do it and see how it feels. Then you start quoting scriptures. Success, favorable or desired outcome. When things seem favorable to us and when we receive the desired outcome that we were so-called praying for and fasting for, and it comes to us, then we get it twisted on how all that came about. We forget about the days of our struggles, the days of our pain, the days of our lack. Success means the attainment of wealth and favor. It's the fact of getting or achieving wealth, respect, or fame. You want to see pride and haughtiness? Allow a person or watch a person receive wealth, receive proper respect or fame, and watch how they get it twisted. It's the correct or desired result of an attempt. It was what I did. My success came from what I did. Someone or something that is successful. That's what success is. Someone or something that is successful. A person or thing that succeeds. Man, when people succeed in whatever it is they're going after, they're doing, they're hoping for, they're praying for, and they receive that success, man, watch out. Wealth. The word wealth, it's an abundance of valuable material possessions or resources. I've always lived under the notion, and I've told my wife and my children the same. Don't you ever change, no matter what we get, no matter how much money comes to us, no matter how much wealth comes to us, no matter how much possessions we receive, no matter how high of position you get in your promotions, don't you ever allow that to go to your head and change who you are. Because as soon as that wealth comes, it can go even faster. Don't you ever get the big head. Don't you ever forget where we came from, what we've gone through, and how we've gotten to this place. And know that it had nothing to do with us, but everything to do with God. So wealth is an abundance of valuable material possessions or resources. It's an abundance of valuable possessions or money. It's the state of being rich, not lacking, but mainly material prosperity. But whether your wealth is health, or whether your wealth is mental, or whether your wealth is spiritual, or whether your wealth is physical and material, as in prosperity, having more than enough possessions, 3 cars. There was a time that I had no vehicle. There was a time I didn't even have a bicycle. I've seen good days and I've seen hard days, very hard days, and more hard days than good days. I never want to measure my success by material wealth, material prosperity, and that's what people base their success upon. I don't want to base my success on material. It's a shame that people lack so gravely in spiritual prosperity, but when it comes to physical prosperity, they have more than enough. But I always knew that physical prosperity is not necessarily a way to measure your wealth and your worth. Why? Because I knew many, many drug dealers in South Florida who had an abundance of wealth, prosperity-wise, material-wise. I knew preachers who didn't have a lick of scripture, but they had an abundance of wealth. They had a fleet of vehicles. They had multiple houses. They dressed in the finest suits and the finest of whatever, and their spouses did the same. But they were spiritually wretched. They had no integrity or very little. They had character flaws galore, yet physically they had all the material possessions that a person would ever want. They had everything except the drugs, because, generally you see people with wealth and you look, okay, so where are the drugs? Where are the drugs? Well, these preachers have no drugs per se, not illegal drugs. They may have spiritual drugs that they put people in a state of whatever they put them in, whatever trance they put people in spiritually. They have that spiritual gift of gab. That's a drug. People flock to it like a drug. They had all the material possessions, but they were bankrupt in other areas. So I always understood that true wealth is not really based upon material prosperity. However, people get to that point in their life when they get that physical wealth, that material prosperity, and they change. They change up and they forget where their success, where their wealth came from. Then the word humility. Humility is freedom from pride or arrogance. Humility, freedom from pride or arrogance. Humility is the quality or state of being humble. The quality or state of being humble. Humility is a missing element in the life of so many so-called Christians or believers. It's an element, it's a wealth, it's a nugget that is just not present. You don't see it. It's everything but humility, everything but being humble. Arrogant is not a good word. Okay. An arrogant person is a person who he or she is exaggerated. The word arrogance. The word arrogance, or let's start with the word arrogant. 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 It's the opposite of being humble, a person of humility. It's having or showing the insulting attitude of people. It's having or showing the insulting attitude of people who believe that they are better, smarter, or more important than other people. We know that's a familiar set of words there. Textbook definition of arrogant. The president, the current president. And that's so unfortunate, but it is true. Speaking truth to power. I raise my hand to say I am guilty for speaking truth to power. Having or showing the insulting attitude of people who believe that they are better, smarter than all the generals. I'm better than any president that's ever been here before me, and more important than any other people. The nation needs me. The nation cannot do without me. Arrogant, exaggerating or exposed or disposed to exaggerate one's own worth, one's own importance. Often just continue to say the same thing. My worth. I'm a billionaire. Are you really? Let me see your taxes. One's importance. I'm more important than the generals. I'm more important than any president before. I am the most important person in the world. Look at me. World, look at me. Showing an exaggeration of one's worth or importance, often by an overbearing manner. An arrogant person is in textbook definition, it says an arrogant official showing an offensive attitude of superiority. The word arrogance is an attitude of superiority manifested in an overbearing manner or in presumptuous claims of assumptions. So either you presume that you're more important and you're superior to everyone and everything, and you even just assume everything that happens in the stock market, everything that's happened in the job with jobs and all, everything that's good or seems to be good or has the face value of good, you assume that it's because of your greatness, your superiority. Arrogance is a person's sense of his or her own importance that shows itself in a proud and insulting way. The word humble, it carries with it one who is modest and unassuming in their attitude and behavior. They don't feel like they're, a gift from God, even though they very well may be. They don't carry themselves as if they're a gift to humanity. Feeling or showing respect and submission toward other people, to lower in condition, importance, or to make meek. A person who is humble is a person who doesn't boast in regards to his importance. He is not a dignified person. He's a meek person, very meek. Whereas on the other hand, a haughty person is one who is blatantly and disdainfully proud, having or showing an attitude of superiority and contempt for people or things perceived to be inferior. To our current day president, unfortunately, all seems to indicate that even black people are inferior to his race. You can have him in the room with 50 millionaires and he's a billionaire, so you're beneath me. He can be in a room with billionaires and they can have more than he, and he still feels he's superior to all of them. That's an haughty attitude. I'm speaking truth to power, and I raise my hand to confess that I'm speaking truth to power. And you also should be speaking truth to power. Why? Because all of this is going down in the annals of history. And history wants to know, did you raise your hand in regards to the truth? Did you hold up what they call the blood-stained banner? Or did you blatantly and disdainfully support the haughtiness that is going forth? Even if you support the person, you don't support the behavior, and you stand against the behavior. Having or showing an attitude of superiority and contempt for people. Jesus never had that attitude of superiority or contempt or things perceived to be inferior. So much is perceived to be inferior. He's got himself and other people believing that immigrants or migrants or those migrating from other places, less fortunate than North America is, now people are feeling as though these people are inferior to us. That's not good. Haughty, having or showing a proud and superior attitude, behaving in a superior, condescending, or arrogant way. Wow. And we actually support all of that. People, that is unfortunate. And remember again, I am neither Republican nor Democrat, nor am I, what would you call the other one, a Sanders? I'm none of that. I'm neither of any of those, but I do speak truth to power. Pride, it's the happy, satisfied feeling that somebody experiences when having or achieving something special that other people admire. And there's nothing with having that form of pride. It's the correct level of respect for the importance and value of your personal character, your personal life, your personal efforts, and your personal achievements. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. People kind of twist it up and feel that the word pride denotes all that is wrong. But no, there's a good part of pride. There is another side of pride that is good. You need to take pride in yourself. Take pride in your accomplishments, in your faithfulness, your committedness. You take pride in that, but you do not over exaggerate. And this is where that definition of pride comes from. That definition of pride, that type of pride, is called a haughty attitude shown by somebody who believes, often unjustifiably, that he or she is better than others. We know that, don't we? We know that type person, that type character, Pride is something such as an achievement or possession that somebody feels especially pleased and satisfied with, but then they become haughty. Their attitude changes. They bump their head, and then they unjustifiably boost themselves, inflate themselves bigger than what they actually are. Sad. Now, people say that, this Satan, this devil person, this Lucifer was this angel, and he had a prideful attitude or whatever in heaven, and he tried to overthrow God, and then he and a third of his angels fell down from heaven, and I beheld Satan fall down from heaven like a lightning. I doubt all of that. If that doesn't sound like a mystical Greek mythological belief, nothing does. Sell me Trick or Treat, Halloween, Jason, Chainsaw Massacre, sell it all to me in one cake. I'll buy it because I'm that stupid. Man, please. I don't believe any of that. That's all the workings of man. But if you believe in your devil, if you believe in your devil, this is what your devil has to say about it.
Do you realize that I wouldn't even send my worst demons to this place if I were God? Wow, what a loving God you have. But whatever, I'll accept you gladly. Bring your own ice, because there won't be any refrigerators here.
Oh boy. Okay, moving on. Let's go now into the definitions, or not. I've done the definitions. That's all the definitions. We have general idea when it comes to haughtiness, high-mindedness, pride, arrogance, being arrogant, humility, being humble, success, wealth, and the word twist, to twist something. Now, let's go to the verses. In Hosea chapter 13, verses 5 through 6. In Hosea chapter 13, verses 5 through 6. In Hosea chapter 13, verses 5 through 6, it says, I knew you in the wilderness, in the land of the drought. God said, I knew you when you were nothing, when you were really nobody but my people. In the land of great drought, when there was nothing out there in that desert. I knew you then. I knew you when you had nothing. When they had pasture, they were filled. God said, and then I gave you pastures, and then you had all that you needed. They were filled, and their heart was exalted. Look at there. As soon as God made them successful, and they had their full, then they became haughty, arrogant, prideful, high-minded, ugly, because they bumped their heads somewhere in the course of their transition into their place of success and wealth. Therefore, they forgot me. Do you see that? The people began to prosper, and they began to see more success and wealth than they had ever seen up to that point. But then they got high-minded. They got the big head. They got swole. And then they forgot me. Look at Psalms chapter 44, verses 1 through 8. Psalms 44, 1 through 8. Again, I'm in the New King James Version unless I say differently. In Psalms chapter 44, verses 1 through 8, it says it like this. We have heard with our ears, O God, our fathers have told us the deeds that you did in their days, in the days of old. You drove out the nations with your hand, but them you planted. He said, you drove out the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, the Hivites, and all of those, the Perizzites, and all of those. You drove them out of their lands, but you gave their lands to us. We heard about what you did, God. You drove out the nations with your hand, but your people you planted. You afflicted other people, and you cast those people out of those lands, for they did not gain possession of the land by their own sword. He said, your people, well, I'll just say you afflicted the people, because at this point this could be referring to when the children of Israel were put out of their land, or it could have been the enemy. I'm not sure. So I'll leave that open right there, that last part of verse 2. But then it goes on and says, for they did not gain possession of the land by their own sword. Now he's talking about his people. See, that's why I leave that last part undone. For they did not gain possession of the land by their own sword. You need to realize whatever success you have, whatever wealth you come into, whatever house you move into, whatever car you move into, whatever job position you move into, whatever ranking that you get, you did not gain that by your own sword, by your own doing, by your own might and strength, nor did their own arms save them. But it was your right hand, God. It was your arm and the light of your countenance, because you favored them, God. It was because your favor was upon them, because your success was upon them. You are my king, O God. Command victories for Jacob. Through you, we will push down our enemies. That's right. And then you don't get on the other side and forget how you push down your enemies. Through your name, we will trample those who rise up against us. For I will not trust in my own bow, nor shall my sword save me. But you, God, have saved us from our enemies and have put to shame those who hated us. In God we boast all day long and praise your name forever. If there's going to be any boasting, let that boasting be in God, not in your own self, Mr. President. Adam, don't go boasting in your own self. Eve, don't go boasting in your own self. Eve, you got that man not because your cake was so sweet. Eve, you got that man because that's what God was doing for you. Man, you got that because of God. Because of God. Don't forget that. Acts chapter 17, verse 26. Acts chapter 17, verse 26. It says it like this. And he, meaning God, made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on all the face of the earth, and has determined their preapportioned times and the boundaries of their dwellings. It basically just says that, man, wherever you find yourself living, residing, just know that it wasn't you. It was all God. This is what God intended. This is what God planned. It has nothing to do with you, sir or ma'am. This has nothing to do with you. You're only living where you're living because of God. You're only in that gated community because of God. You're only in that mansion because of God. You only live the way that you do because of God. Don't you look down at those who live in mobile homes. Don't you look down upon those who live in not so great houses. Don't you look upon those who live in apartment complexes because you live in a $1 million condo, or because you drive a Benz and they drive a hoopty. Don't do that. In Acts chapter 17, verse 26, it says, God began, this is in the NIV, in the New Century Version of the Bible. It says, God began by making one person, and from him came all the different people who live everywhere in the world. God decided exactly when and where they must live. Understand this here. However you living, whatever you're living in, don't let your success and your wealth get to your head. It's only because of God that you're there. Had nothing to do with you. It was the way God scripted the story for your life. You need to understand that and humble yourself. Maintain your state of humility as a result of all that God has done. Take pride in what God has done, but don't forget that your boasting is in God, not in your home, not in what you possess, because you can lose that job. That home can be burned down. That home can be vandalized. Anything could happen. From one man, this is the NIV version of this. From one man, he made every nation of men that they should inhabit the whole earth. And he determined the times set for them and the exact places where they should live. You are not the reason why you live where you live. Your timing wasn't so great, but God's predetermined times for you is what caused you to walk right into the favor. And that doesn't mean that because you walked into the favor, others who don't possess what you have did not walk into the favor. They're still just as favored and highly favored as you are. You just happen to have more physical possessions than they. But you could be wretched spiritually. In 2 Samuel chapter 22, 2 Samuel chapter 22, verses 21 through 25. 2 Samuel chapter 22, verses 21 through 25. I'm in the King James Version, the New King James Version. It says, "The Lord rewarded me according to my righteousness." And see, a lot of people, that's where we begin to get it wrong as well. Yes, you do get rewarded in some sense of the way for right living. I mean, you're adhering to principle, you're living a disciplined life. Things do come about for you. But don't think that it's because of your righteousness that you have what you have, and because of what you're doing so wonderfully that you got what you got. The Lord rewarded me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanness of my hands. He has recompensed me. Recompensed me. He's given me that which I earned, basically. For I have kept the ways of the Lord. And this is how people talk. Lord, I thank you that I'm not like him. I thank you that I fast twice a day and I pray all the time. And I got this. And I go to church every day. And I'm on the choir. And I'm on the usher board. And I'm on all this other stuff. I be doing everything, God. I be doing everything. Look at me, God. So, God, you owe me. You recompensed me. He recompensed me. For I have kept the ways of the Lord and have not wickedly departed from my God. For all his judgments were before me. And as for his statutes, I did not depart from his statutes. I was also blameless before him. And I kept myself from iniquity. Boy, this isn't high-minded, prideful people talking. Look at all that I did. That's why I got this, because I did this and I did that, and this and this, that, and my genetics is this and my genetics is that, and I got good health, and I got this and I got that, and our genetics are just superior to yours, and my education is more superior to yours, and my car is bigger than yours, my house is better than yours, and therefore the Lord has recompensed me according to my righteousness, according to my cleanness in his eyes. Yeah? Okay. Let's look at what God said to the children of Israel before they even went on that rampage of a lie. In Deuteronomy chapter 9, Deuteronomy chapter 9, in Deuteronomy chapter 9, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. I do that because oftentimes people who we will be dealing with, who I am dealing with, who I am speaking to, I believe that many of you will not even have a church background and you don't even know the books of the Bible, and that's not a problem, and you're not sinning for not knowing that. It will be good for you to come to know it if you're going to spend adequate time in the Bible trying to learn some things, but it's okay if you don't. So anyway, in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 9, verses 4 through 5 or 4 through 6, in the New King James Version, look what God said before these people in 2 Samuel went on this rampage. God said, "Do not think in your heart, after the Lord your God has cast these people out of your land, the Canaanites, the Hivites, the Hivitites, the Jebusites, the Jezreelites, all these, the Hittites, the Hivites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites. I don't know, not the Jebusites, but anyway, all of these sites. I used to know them all. I don't know them like that. I could ramble them all off, but I got to remember them now. But I get all of that right again. I just don't mess with it like that anymore, only because God is moving me beyond. But anyway, I'll go back to that in order to build my arguments at times and stuff. So I'll go back to some of that, not all of it. It says again in verse 4, "Do not think in your heart that after the Lord your God has cast them out before you, saying, because of my righteousness, the Lord has brought me in to possess this land." And that's exactly what they did in 2 Samuel. They began to say, because I was so righteous, it was according to my righteousness and according to my cleanliness that the Lord did this here. And he said, don't do this, but they said it's because of my righteousness that the Lord has brought me in to possess this land. But it is because of the wickedness of these nations that the Lord is driving them out before you. He basically saying it had nothing to do with you, why you possess what you possess, why you drive what you drive, why you live in what you live in, why you are in the position that you are in, why you have the authority in your workplace as you do. why you have that collar around your neck, why you are in the bishopric, why you are considered this or considered that, has nothing to do with you, fella. It has everything to do with God. He said it was because of their wickedness that the Lord drove them out before you. In verse 5, it says, it is not because of your righteousness or the uprightness of your heart that you go in to possess their lands, but it is because of the wickedness of these nations that the Lord your God drives them out from before you, and that he may fulfill the word which he swore to your fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that he would do this here. He was keeping his promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He was keeping his word. It had nothing to do with the goodness that you were doing. It has nothing to do with you, sir or ma'am, not necessarily. And that he may fulfill the word that he swore to your fathers. Verse 6, therefore understand that the Lord, understand this, that's what it says. That's scripture. Therefore, understand that the Lord your God is not giving you this good land to possess because of your righteousness. This has nothing to do with you, sir or ma'am, for you are a stiff-necked people. The Lord is not giving you this good land to possess because of your righteousness, because you are a stiff-necked people. That's haughty, prideful, arrogant, disobedient. All of the disobedience that people show, all of the pride and haughtiness and arrogance and high-mindedness that people have, yet somehow they think that God gives them what he gives them because of their goodness, because of their good deeds, because of what they're doing so grand and greatly. But God is saying, no, silly, it's just the opposite. Look at Isaiah chapter 64. Isaiah chapter 64. In Isaiah chapter 64, it says it like this. Verse 6 in the New King James Version first, and then in the New Living Translation. So in the New King James Version, it says, but we all are like an unclean thing. And that's what you need to remember. You need to approach your success and your wealth in this mindset. But we are all like an unclean thing, and all of our righteousness are like filthy rags. All the good that you do, all of our righteousnesses, that's what it says in the New King James Version, are like filthy rags. We all fade as a leaf, and our iniquities, like the wind, have taken us away. We didn't do anything so grand or so lovely to be where we are and to live how we live and to drive how we drive and to be in the positions that we hold and to make the financial income that we make, or to have this or to have that. Whatever makes you credible, whatever makes you valuable, whatever gives you clout amongst your communal people, those you commune with, whether it's in your local community, whether it's on the Forbes list, whether it's in your church arena, whatever makes you beneficial, whatever makes you swole in the membrane, it has nothing to do with you, fella. In the New Living Translation, it says there in verse 6, we are all infected and impure with sin. We are. When we proudly display our righteous deeds, we find they are but filthy rags. Like autumn leaves, we wither and fall, and our sins, like the wind, sweep us away. That's the truth of the matter. In Daniel chapter 9, verse 18. Daniel 9 and 18, New King James Version, it says it like this. Oh my God, incline your ear and hear. Open your eyes and see our desolations and the city which is called by your name, because the children of Israel will take it into Babylon at this time. They were in Babylonian captivity, and the people I'm sure were crying out saying, God, look at what has happened to us. Look at what has happened to Jerusalem. Look at what has happened to all that you promised to our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And then it says, for we do not present our supplications before you because of our righteous deeds, but because of your great mercies. That's the attitude we should have. God, we don't come to you because we're so great and we're so grand, and we don't walk around as though it's because of our righteous deeds that we are where we are and that we have the favor, we have the success, we have the wealth that we possess. But we come before you, God, because it's because of your great mercies that we have what we have and that we are what we are. We don't come to you with the pride of humanity, with the haughtiness, with the arrogance of our humanity. In Luke chapter 17, this is to go with Daniel in Luke chapter 17, verses 7 through 10. Luke 17, verses 7 through 10. New King James Version, look at what it says. And which of you having a servant plowing or tending sheep, who will say to him when he has come in from the field, come at once and sit down to eat? But will he not rather say to him, since he's your servant, would you not say to him, prepare something for my supper, and gird yourself and serve me till I have eaten and drunk? And afterward, you, my peasant, my servant, will eat and drink. Verse 9, does he thank that servant because that servant did the things that were commanded him? No, I think not. But you do thank people who help you, people who serve you in the restaurants. You don't be haughty or prideful or arrogant. You don't be stingy or cheap. If they've given you a proper service, you don't do that. You don't be that to them. Like me, if someone does me wrong and it's too wrong, I'll either get up and go somewhere else to eat, or I'll eat and then I'll go to the manager and I'll say, hey, look, we ate your food. We want you to know this is what happened and we don't appreciate this or that, but this is how it is. We don't want that person to lose their job, but we do want you to realize, or to help that person to realize, that we are human beings and we are just as worthy, and our money does not have any color to it other than green. It all spends the same. But you don't get nasty with the person because they're in a position where they have to bust your table, where they have to go get your meal. And now you become arrogant, all because you got your little tax money. And now you can finally go out once a year to go eat. And now you want to go into there with your little tax money that's only going to last another 2 days. And from the time you get it, and now you're acting like you're bougie and like you all big and whatever. And it's tax money. And then you probably lied to get that, or you sold one of your kids' social security number in order to get it. You did something tricking to do it. But then you have the audacity to become nasty or arrogant to those who are there to serve you. But in verse 9, it says, does he thank that servant because that servant did the things that were commanded him? It says, I think not. In verse 10, it says, so likewise you, when you have done all those things which you are commanded, say, we are unprofitable servants. We have done what was our duty to do. Do you understand that even after you have worked all of your so-called righteousnesses, after you've worked all of that, you've only done that which was your duty to do. You've only done that which was your reasonable service to do. You are not to be thanked. You were doing what you were hired to do. You're doing what you were created to do. So you are unprofitable even then. So you still can't take credit for the success and wealth that you have, for the favor that is upon your life, for the house that you live in, for the home that you possess, for the homes that you possess, for the lands that you possess, for the vehicles that you possess. It still has nothing to do with you. You've only done that which was your reasonable service. Now, let's go back to Exodus chapter 20. Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 and 2. Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 and 2. And it says, God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Now listen, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the land of bondage. You didn't do this. I did this. Then it goes on to say in Deuteronomy 5 and 6, Deuteronomy 5 and 6, it says, New King James Version, it says, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. God keeps reminding them, look, fella, I'm the one who brought you out of Egypt. Chapter 20, verses 1 and 2. Then in Deuteronomy 5 and 6, the same thing. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Then we go into Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 10 through 12. It says this, so it shall be when the Lord your God brings you into the land which he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give you large and beautiful cities which you did not build. Which you did not build. Do you see that? Which you did not build. Houses full of all goods, which you did not fill. Hewn out wells, which you did not dig. Vineyards and olive trees, which you did not plant. When you have eaten and gotten your full off of all of these things, then you better beware, lest you forget the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage. Now, he initially started saying, look, I did this. When you were nobody, I did this. And I'm going to send you into a land, the land of the Canaanites, the Hivites, the Hittites, the Jebusites, and all the rest of them, Perizzites. I'm going to bring you there, and I'm going to give you beautiful cities that you didn't even build. I'm going to give you houses full of all good things, which houses which you did not fill. Hewn out wells which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant. Be careful when you've eaten and are full, lest you forget who got you here, lest you forget where your success and wealth came from. Wow. It's really not you. It's really not. It's not even about you. It's about God keeping his promises to those before you. God keeping his promises in regards to you, in regards to his purpose and plan for you. Don't get it twisted, fella. God was saying to the people, don't get over there and get it twisted. Let's read 3 more verses to go along with that. In Psalms 105, verses 43 and 44. Psalms 105, verses 43 and 44, New King James Version, it says, he brought out his people with joy, his chosen ones with gladness. He gave them the lands of the Gentiles, and they inherited the labor of the nations. Those people who lived there before them that they ran out and killed, supposedly, they inherited the labor that those nations put forth to build those houses and those cities, and to build all of that wealth up, and to plant those vineyards and dig those wells and have all that they had. Those people did that, and then God just put you there, sir or ma'am. In Psalm chapter 68, verse 20, it says, our God is the God of salvation, and to God the Lord belong escape. I don't know what happened there. There's something there. But anyway, the key there is our God is the God of salvation. Salvation is saving. Whatever salvation, whatever saving that has been done on your behalf, it was done for you by God. It had nothing to do with you saving yourself. And I'm not talking about spiritual salvation. I'm just talking about God delivering you. Whatever he delivered you from, that's a type of salvation. God did that. He's the God of that. He's the one to help you escape death. James chapter 1, verse 18, it says, of his own will he brought us forth This was of his own will, fella. Has nothing to do with you, your success, and your wealth. Whether it's your spiritual success or your physical success, it's all the same in the sense that it was of his own will he brought us forth. We are not living in this place of favor and success because of the good that we've done, because of our righteousness says, when our righteousness is as a filthy rag. Isn't that something? Think about that, and let's prepare for the next one. Again, we're just talking simple truths now. There are times that we go deep, and then there are some times that there's no need to go deep. We can catch all the fish we need right here on shore. Why? Because there's a wave that has come in and brought the fish closer to shore. All we need to do is just go out there and pick the pickings to be picked. We don't always have to go out into the deep. Not always. It's good to go out there, and we will go out there. But let's just stay on the shore of things and just take on the simplicity of Scripture right now. Just plain and simple principles. People don't like principles because principles demand that you be disciplined. First of all, disciplined enough to sit still and be quiet. Secondly, disciplined enough to be able to obtain and then retain that which you have gained through your sitting. People don't like this type of teaching, just simplistic teaching. They don't like that because it doesn't necessarily feel good, because you got to miss certain things on television. You got to miss certain events that's going on outside the home or with your family members or whatever. You got to sacrifice for some things. You got to be able to give up some things. You got to be able to deny yourself and get up on your cross daily and go through some things. Deny yourself of some things if you're going to get some things as it relates to spiritual growth. So let's go to the next one. All right.